Hello, everyone. It's me, Lauren. I'm back with my read aloud of I Survived the Destruction of Pompeii. And I'm going to begin with chapter 12, but a little recap. We left Marcus and Tata on horseback as they were rushing away from the mountain Vesuvius, which was starting to behave very, very strangely. And Tata is starting to have some theories about what could be going on under that mountain, and he has become convinced that it's going to explode. So as I'm reading this, I want you to think a little more about some of the things that I've been talking about in the other read-alouds. I want you to think about how Marcus's character is changing a little bit. What do you know about him? What are some ways that you would describe him? When I'm writing these books, I'm thinking about the characters. I'm thinking about how I want them to change as the book goes on. So keep that in your mind too. How has Marcus changed from the very beginning of the book to now? And what are examples of this? How do we know that he's changed? So here we go, chapter 12. The sun was high in the sky as they approached the city. They tied Peg to a tree in an olive grove about a half mile from Pompeii's eastern gates. Marcus hugged Peg. "I'll be back." The mare nosed him in the chest, looking him in the eye. The ground rumbled again. The tremors were definitely getting stronger. Marcus looked back nervously at the mountain and loosened Peg's rope. "If we're not back, you need to break free from here and get out on your own." Peg eyed him. "Do you understand me?" he said. "Don't wait for us." The mare snorted. Marcus hoped that meant yes. He hugged her one last time, and Tata rubbed her nose before they headed to the city gates. Tata's plan was to speak to Pompeii's magistrates, the men elected to lead the city. They would know the best way to warn the people of Pompeii. Marcus and Tata wove through the crowded streets, keeping their eyes out for the men who might help and those who might be hunting for them. It didn't take long to reach the Forum, an open square surrounded by 5 buildings, and the city's main temple, dedicated to Jupiter. Statues of emperors and generals seemed to glare at Marcus as he followed Tata to the magistrates' building. Marcus's heart pounded as they approached the entrance, where 3 steely-looking guards stood watch. "Stop, slave," a guard ordered. Tata held his head up. "Sir, I have an urgent message for the city's leaders. The city is in danger. We must warn the people of Pompeii." Here's a picture of Papa talking to those guards and their steely looks. The man barely glanced at Tata from beneath his helmet. "Be gone," the guard ordered, shooing him as though he were a stray dog. "Sir," Tata said, "it's the mountain. There will soon be a terrible explosion. The guard raised his spear menacingly. "Go from here. Nobody wants to talk to a filthy slave." Suddenly Marcus couldn't help but see what the guard saw when he looked at Tata. With his tattered tunic and body stained with bruises, Tata looked little better than the beggar woman. The other guards stepped up, their spears glinting in the sun. Do you remember the beggar woman from an earlier chapter? I might want to remind you of her, because she's making a little bit of an appearance again. The other guards stepped up, their spears glinting in the sun. This was hopeless, Marcus realized. "You're making a mistake," Tata warned, taking Marcus's arm and hurrying him away. They walked out of the Forum and headed toward the main street. "We'll have to tell people ourselves," Tata said. "We'll go to the shops and restaurants. Hopefully some people will listen." Marcus hoped Tata couldn't read his thoughts, that they were wasting their time. Nobody would take the word of a slave. They stood on the sidewalk waiting to cross the crowded street. 2 laughing little boys ran behind their mother. One held a wooden sword. "I'm Cyclops," the boy sang. The gladiator match, that's where everyone was heading. Marcus watched the boys, but then his eyes drifted up to Vesuvius. What he saw stopped his heart. A wisp of smoke rising out of the peak. The mountain seemed to be coming alive. "Tata," Marcus pointed up at the smoking mountain. Tata stared in horror and fascination. They both stood there, their eyes glued to the mountain, which is why they didn't see the golden chariot that stopped suddenly right in front of them, or the pair of cold, pale eyes that glared at them. By the time Marcus saw Festus, his guards rushing towards them, it was too late. Penned in by the crowds, he and Tata were trapped. And seconds later, Marcus was staring at the glinting tip of a spear. idiots, Festus hissed. You actually believed you could escape? Tata shook his arm from the guard's grip and stepped toward Festus. Sir, please, a disaster is coming. The mountain is about to explode. People must leave the city right away. Papa Festus laughed cruelly. You think you can save yourselves by telling a tale? The guard grabbed Tata roughly, and once again, Tata shook himself free. He seemed to be gaining strength from the crowd, from the fear and panic in the eyes of the people all around them. You felt the earth tremors, and now look at the mountain. You can see for yourself the smoke. Any moment, it's about to explode. Festus did not even look at the mountain. He put his face close to Tata's, screaming, You dare try to outsmart me? You think I'm a fool? Think of your uncle, sir, of Linus, Tata said, struggling as the guard gripped him again. He would agree with me, I'm certain. Festus's fat cheeks turned bright red. My uncle was a weak-minded idiot, Festus said, spitting out the words. He cared more for a slave than me, a man who shared his own blood. And suddenly it was all clear to Marcus why Festus had sold Tata so quickly. Few people in Rome were as admired as Linus Celius. And yet, he had never been impressed by Festus's chariots and villas and fine stallions. Linus knew the truth about his nephew, that he made his money by cheating people. Tata had the one thing that Festus's fortune couldn't buy, his uncle's respect, and Festus hated Tata for it. He hated him so much that he would make Tata suffer the worst fate imaginable, death in the arena. Take this slave to the lanista, Festus ordered. He will be there just in time for his match against Cyclops. As the guards dragged his father away, Marcus's blood boiled in his veins. His heart smoldered with hatred. He stepped close to Festus, looking him squarely in his fish-like eyes. You are evil. Marcus, Tata gasped. Marcus couldn't miss the flicker of shock on Festus's face. But of course, Festus had the last word. Take the boy to the lanista too. Tell him it's a gift from me. It will be quite a show today for the people of Pompeii. As the guards took hold of Marcus, something exploded deep inside him. He opened his mouth to scream, to curse Festus and this dark, evil world. But it was not Marcus's voice that filled the air. It was the voice of Vesuvius. Two shattering explosions. Boom! Boom! Chapter 13. The ground shook as Marcus had never felt before, as though hundreds of monsters were waking up in their underground caves, pounding the earth in fits of fury. Panicking, the guards let go of Marcus and Tata. Marcus ran to his father and clung to him, struggling to stay upright as the earth rose and fell like waves on a wild river. The top of the mountain had blown off, and from the jagged opening gushed an enormous billowing brown cloud. The cloud seemed to stretch to the heavens. Flames shot through the smoke as jagged bolts of lightning ripped at the sky. Here's a picture. People streamed out of their shops. Beggars rose to their feet. Slaves dropped their bundles of wood and water jugs. For a moment, nobody spoke. Nobody even seemed to be breathing. All eyes were on the mountain, and then came the shouts. It's the end of the world! Why are the gods punishing us? Everyone must leave Pompeii, Tata shouted. He started pulling Marcus through the crowd, but Festus called up to his guards. No, stop those slaves, Festus bellowed. The guards lunged for Marcus and Tata, but Tata held up his hands. You must listen, he boomed. Somehow his voice rose up over the roar of Vesuvius. To Marcus's shock, the guards did not move. They were just as scared as everyone else. If you want to live, you must leave now, Tata warned. He spoke not only to the guards, but to the gathering crowd. Get out of this city and go as far away from the mountain as you can. Just then a man stepped out of Festus's chariot. His fine white toga swished around his powerful body. In his hand flashed the seal of a senator, one of the most powerful men in Pompeii. But it was not Festus that this man had come to talk to. It was Tata. What did you say about the mountain? He demanded. How do you know this? Festus stepped up. The man silenced Festus with a wave of his hand. Speak, he ordered Tata. Tata did not shrink back from this powerful man. He met his challenging gaze. Sir, for years my master was the scientist Linus Cellius. My son and I were on the mountain last night. We saw many signs that this disaster was coming. Soon it will be too late to escape with our lives. The man looked up at the mountain, at the boiling ash cloud that now filled the sky. The mountain's power seemed to be growing. It was now only a matter of time before this blanket of doom fell over the city. How much time do we have? The man asked. A few hours at most, Tata said. The worst will come after the mountain runs out of power. I believe all the gases and ash in the sky will come back down and explode. A great wave of fire will sweep over Pompeii. Dear gods, the man whispered. A mask seemed to drop from his face, bearing his fear. Festus, he said, we must warn the magistrates at once. We must order people to leave the city. And before Festus could reply, the man had rushed off. With surprising speed, he sprinted across the forum. He rushed past the guards and disappeared into a government building. This is nonsense, Festus bellowed, but his words were cut off by a loud whoosh from the sky just above them. Marcus looked up just in time to see a giant flaming fireball closing in on them. Look out, someone screamed. Tata grabbed Marcus as they dove for cover behind an enormous statue. And then, kaboom! The flaming boulder hit the street with a deafening explosion. Small shards of rock showered over Marcus and Tata, but the explosion had spared them. They struggled to his feet and made their way back to the street where a crowd had formed. He heard gasps and wails of shock. As Tata and Marcus approached, one of Festus's guards turned around. The master is dead. Marcus peered through the crowd. The boulder had left a shallow crater in the street, and in the center, lying in a broken heap, was Festus. Marcus looked away. He expected to feel happy. Festus was dead. But it turned out that there was no pleasure in seeing someone's broken body, not even the body of someone as hateful as Festus. Marcus looked up at the roiling cloud spewing from Vesuvius, and all he could feel was terror. So that is the end of chapter 13, and tomorrow I'm going to finish this book. I've got 3 more chapters to go. But your quest today, I would really like you to think about, how has Marcus changed? What happened in this last 2 chapters that show that he is no longer the scared, weakened person he was when we first met him in chapter 2, when he was lugging that huge bag of soiled laundry that belonged to his master Festus, when he felt so hopeless. What has happened to Marcus through this book? What are the different points in the book where he has gained strength? And how do we know that he is so strong now? How do we know? So that's just what I want you to think about. Maybe you even want to write that up, and maybe you want to even send it to your teacher to impress him or her. That is my read aloud for the day. I will be looking forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.